What were Palpatine's reactions to the death of Darth Maul? How did it change over the years, and why did it turn to utter hatred and fury? But in the end, Palpatine admitting that Maul was a real loss and a true asset of the Sith. Why did Palpatine's opinion of Maul change so drastically? When Darth Maul died during the Battle of Naboo, it wasn't something that Sidious had foreseen nor planned for. Unlike most events which were completely within the Dark Lord's grasp, this had been an unforeseen variable, one that threw a major wrench in his plans for a while. When the Chosen One had finally come in the form of Anakin Skywalker, both Plagueis and Sidious knew that Qui-Gon was the key to everything. If this one rogue Jedi were to train the boy in the ways that he was meant to be trained, it would mean their complete undoing. But Sidious calmed his mind and decided that this was the dark side's way of telling the Sith that it was finally time for them to reveal themselves. And instead of being filled with great fear like Plagueis, he was filled with great anticipation. But first he needed to take care of two things: kill Qui-Gon for Anakin's sake, and have the death of that master and apprentice strike fear into the hearts of the entire Jedi Order. While Qui-Gon's death had been successful, and the Jedi were filled with fear, they were also filled with hope since a Padawan bested Maul. Hearing that the death of the first Sith to appear in centuries had been stopped by a mere Padawan infuriated Sidious. But today, let's open up a holocron and find out the greater details, and the fascinating evolution of the thoughts of Sidious. But before we begin, we ourselves have had a terrible vision. Many that use our archives have not yet subscribed to our order yet, so if you've been enjoying the daily Star Wars uploads, reach out with the Force and crush that subscribe button. It is your destiny, we have foreseen it. The first thing we must analyze is the very moment that Sidious felt Maul lose through the Force itself. Maul being bisected may not have killed him, but the drastic amount of midichlorian loss when he was cut in half caused an equivalent ripple in the Force as if Maul had died. With this idea in mind, Sidious had just finished killing his master Darth Plagueis on Coruscant, mere minutes earlier in fact, relishing in his victory of the Sith and the fact that he was the one to be nominated as Supreme Chancellor. Palpatine's plans were on track, and the death of Darth Plagueis was the greatest moment in his entire life. The dark side had told Sidious that it was time for him to usurp the mantle, and so he acted. But during his storm of emotions in the aftermath, the Darth Plagueis novel describes Palpatine feeling and sensing something else. This confused and troubled him a great deal, and Palpatine suddenly felt a profound sense of loss and loneliness. Palpatine felt as though he were completely alone in the Sith, which shocked him since Maul was around. Palpatine held no care for his master and was looking forward to the day that he could kill and butcher Plagueis. But little did he know until much later that the loss he was feeling was Darth Maul many light years away. Having killed his master and his apprentice dying at the exact same moment, Sidious was now the only Sith, and the Force was letting him know that. Palpatine would soon arrive on Naboo to attend the celebration, and he had planned for the Trade Federation to lose, and had fully prepared for all that came afterwards. But what he had not expected was seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi alive and well, with talks among the Jedi that the Sith had been defeated by him. Palpatine at this moment was confused more than anything. He didn't understand how Maul could have lost, and came very close to asking the Council for the specifics of the duel. Being very intrigued, it was a lot to hold himself back, but he did. He relented, not wanting to draw suspicion. But soon, it didn't matter, as his confusion was incinerated by his burning fury. His curiosity stomped out. Originally, Sidious still had lots of plans for Maul after Naboo. Sidious had explained earlier that his plans were to assume the role of Master and to use Maul as the Sith errand boy, taking care of tasks that Palpatine could not risk exposure over. He still desperately needed that confidant, and Maul was more than prepared to step into that position. Darth Sidious had trained Maul as a like-minded individual more than a Sith. He was a massive part of the plan moving forward, and Palpatine had not expected to have to look for another apprentice. But this wasn't the only thing that Palpatine was furious over. He had spent 20 long years training Maul, 20 years after finding the perfect specimen on Dathomir and making an enemy out of Mother Talzin, training Maul as the perfect Sith assassin. But then, he dies during his debut, the arrival of the Sith. It wasn't just that he died during his first appearance, it was the weight behind this appearance. This is what made Sidious so angry. This was to be the first Sith's grand return after 1,000 years of hiding in the shadows. It was a deadly promise to the Jedi that they were back. Centuries of expert maneuvering. This was the moment to shove the rule of two down the throat of the Jedi, slaying their favorite master and apprentice duo. And yet, Maul somehow fumbled. He had been made for this. After all of his training to kill Jedi, his fascination, this should have been an easy victory. But Maul snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory and failed in the most spectacular way possible. A Padawan. The sheer amount of humiliation Palpatine felt was the worst part of it all, and it didn't help that before that, Palpatine had suffered through Maul's incessant begging to kill a Jedi, holding him back endlessly, waiting for the right moment to strike. To butcher a Jedi is something that Maul had wanted to do for so long, and the moment he was able to satiate his bloodlust, he lost. He lost to a learner. It was because of this that in the aftermath of it all, Sidious, quite literally subconsciously, erases Maul from his mind, choosing not to let the fury boil over to the point where it could hurt his plan, and to obsess over the embarrassment. He would lose all of his anger about the subject, and callously move on to the next step of his plans. Sidious's mood would be improved about the entire situation when he got to Dooku. Dooku was not just a mindless animal, but had fierce intelligence and was cunning. Through him, Sidious could do far more than he ever could through Maul. While not being able to have the streetwise assassin type, Sidious was fine with switching to Dooku being more of a figurehead. The time for the Sith to be in the shadows was now over. The war was starting, and Dooku perfectly filled the role that Maul never would. And yet, when Maul returned, we talked before about how it completely shocked Sidious, and how it shocked him into silence. He would find Maul and capture him after destroying him in a duel, and we find out that in the Son of Dathomir comics, Sidious kept Maul in a facility for torture. His plans were to mentally break the former Sith and make him an unwilling slave to the cause. There were still plenty of Jedi that needed to be murdered, Obi-Wan specifically, but of course, with the help of Death Watch, Maul would break out of this and go on for his own revenge quests against Sidious and Kenobi. But it is here where something very important happens. Palpatine admits that Maul was greatly valuable to him and is worth far more than what we initially thought. And Palpatine knew this. Therefore, he made sure to destroy everything Maul had built, to break his spirit in any way so that he could never rise again. He was successful in this venture, but many years down the road, Sidious would reflect with Vader on his thoughts about Darth Maul. Decades had passed, and he had admitted that Maul had amazing potential, and that had Maul lived, he may have become a truly powerful Sith. Sidious would even go as far as to say that Maul was a true loss to the entire Sith cause, with this being the quote, "I learned from the mistakes of my forebears. I used those who were not Sith to achieve my aims, and my apprentices. Darth Maul was a loss, but Darth Tyrannus, he was a proton torpedo. He served his purpose and was gone. I had another candidate in mind. The loss of Maul was a tragedy to the Sith's history. Sidious was embarrassed of Maul's death, but time heals all wounds, and in the end, he admitted his true worth." But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on Sidious actually coming to this striking conclusion? As always, Acolytes, thank you so much for your constant support on the channel, and may the Force be with you.